Hi, welcome back to my channel. I want to start off this video by saying and celebrating the fact that I did indeed found a rune word all by myself. Of course the item is very much unusable on the necromancer that I have, but I just wanted to play around with it and I wanted to see if I can make one, guess one, if I can just put something together and create something in the cube other than just stacking gems. I will agree that most of this was just luck, because if I didn't drop the mace, if I didn't drop the right runes, I wouldn't have thought the fact that they sound cool is a way to go, if that makes sense. If I didn't get help previously from the chat about the chess piece, I wouldn't have gone on the path that I did to actually achieve this. So I do thank you for that, and I will agree that most of it was luck, and trust me, I do understand how difficult it is to make rune words. I get it, there's so many different combinations. I just wanted to, whether that was creating a socket, a rune word, or anything like that, I just wanted to achieve something for myself on my first run, because if it weren't for the viewers and for the comments, I wouldn't have been aware of the extended benefit of the rune word. So I would have just used the gems as they were. So having to achieve something like this by myself made me feel like I owned my own path through the game. So when I did make this one yesterday, I was so excited. It felt crazy, I'm not gonna lie, because I was first doing just my gems, and then I think I was trying to create sockets, and I was doing things, but I said, you know what, I'm going to try the rune words with the runes that I have. I looked at the attributes of the previously one that you guys helped me make, and to see like what way does it work. And then, to be honest, I just figured because it's called rune word, it has to have some type of a name that sounds cool or rolls off the tongue very easily. And in this case, I made a rune that was called Tyrell, I think is how you pronounce it. And I genuinely just thought that sounded really like seamless, and it sounded like a real word. And it reminded me of Slovakian beer that I usually drink when I go over. It's called Birel, and it's a non-alcoholic beer, but they do like flavored ones. Anyway, that's off the point. But it just sounded really cool, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it on this mace. I had a mace ready, I had a sword ready, and I think I had a headpiece ready, as well as a base, is what I was told is the code word to use, a base. So I just tried it on the mace first, and luckily enough, this is what happened. I was like, the way I howled when that happened was unnatural. I think my neighbors would have been concerned for sure. So just putting that out there, I was so excited to get into Act 5 after this, because I was on such a hype after Diablo, and I was on such a hype after creating that rune word, and it just made me feel really positive and good. So without further ado, let's put my thoughts into words for Act 5. Now, for most people that watched the stream yesterday, they watched me crash out. They really did. And I do apologize for one thing, and that is for swearing so much. I started getting so tilted at the last boss that it definitely affected the way I was reacting, and I do apologize for that. Probably didn't make the best content, but struggles are real. And this one, struggle was real for sure, and I didn't struggle peacefully this time around. But anyway, I firstly want to talk about the maps, actually, because the maps had a huge impact on how I felt about the whole act, and there was some good and some bad as well. But specifically, and I'm taking this word from a viewer that perfectly described my feeling when I was playing this act, and that is just chaos. It's actually a great game production, development, content creation to make you feel so chaotic and out of place and frustrated and just all these negative feelings, because in my opinion, the point of Act 5 was the case that they were in war and in battle and constantly just feeling anxious and angry and out of place and overwhelmed and just all of these kind of heavy emotions. And I think from developer standpoint of view, this was incredible to be able to achieve this within a game, to make you feel the way the game should make you feel based on what you're playing, is no short of godlike. Honestly, it was great game development, writing, just in general, everything about that was, it's just fascinating to me. It really is fascinating. Okay, the rest of the thoughts and the rest of the feelings are very much a personal touch to it. So in my opinion, and my opinion only, because everybody's going to agree to disagree with people, and I think that's the way it should be, because everyone has different preferences. But for me specifically, I don't like chaos that much. I don't like when things are overbearing, when things are overwhelming, and I get easily overstimulated. That's why I always prefer simpler game styles, simple battle fights or encounters, and just environment, just more on the simpler sides, specifically for me. Okay, so when I was playing through these maps, I do want to say that I can really appreciate that it did make me feel the way they wanted me to feel. But on a personal note, I really did not enjoy it. I was, as I said, I was very overstimulated and overwhelmed, and my brain was getting fried. And that is, I don't consider that fun personally. So the first map I actually really enjoyed because it made me feel like I was part of the war, part of the defense, part of the rebellion, trying to defend them, trying to help them, and everything. It did feel chaotic, but in a positive way for sure. I started to be a bit more overwhelmed, as there was a lot of things that were hitting me, and I was trying to adapt, and I was trying to make my way through it. All these trenches and in the map, that made a lot of sense. So the architectural design was very well put together. I really enjoy that. But as it was moved into the second map, this was the most problematic map for me specifically, because it was, to me, it felt like there was a lot of obstruction on purpose. I can understand that there were ruins and castles, and this is where they call them Smurfs or goblins, they were lived and attacked. I can see the architecture and the environment was very well put together, but in my opinion, there was too much of it. There was too many obstructions, and for me, it made my life as a caster, or even just as a player, it just made it more difficult and a lot less fun. It felt like they added way too many obstructions to make you stay in that map for as long as possible, and just genuinely play more within the act. And on top of that, these Smurfs, I was getting a headache. They just never stopped. I did not get a breather the whole time. I'm going to keep saying that this is the right way to do the act, because you are supposed to be at war that's just never ending, and I can 100% agree with that. So everything that I'm saying is just my personal preference as a player myself, because I just don't like the chaos that much. Okay, so it was very well done. It's just on my side, I just didn't enjoy it that much. So that wasn't very fun for me. So it was the first time on the second map there that I did not fully complete the map. I didn't want to, because it felt like it was never ending. And I just basically got out of it as soon as possible. There was also 2 portals there, and that I didn't even attempt to try, just because I had absolutely no one to try them at all. So I can't actually comment on the content of it. Maybe it was great, maybe it was no fun. I don't know, but I wanted to get out of that specific map as soon as possible. Moving on to the maps that I really, really enjoyed, were the ice caves. That was a lot of fun. That was very immersive. The environment was really cool. The mobs were really well placed. Everything about that was simple but immersive. And the same thing I'm going to say is the Ancients. That map was unbelievable. That was the only place I felt really like excitedly anxious about, and I kind of foreseen what was going to happen, and it was just even more exciting. And the viewpoint from the platform was insane as well, because it made you feel like you got to this place where nobody goes, and it's just you and the Ancients, and it's like you're high above the ground, above the war, and everything up here is peaceful, but down there is crazy. And that was a very gratifying feeling. I would say it was very, as I said, it was very peaceful but immersive and exciting. So that was definitely one of my favorite places in Act 5. Probably, yeah, the favorite place in Act 5 for sure. Now, on my stream, I did mention the storylines to this act felt a little disconnected for me. I have previously said that after Diablo, I felt like the game probably should have ended there. Specifically because, to me, when I was playing Diablo, I didn't know anything about the game. So to me, Diablo was the last boss. Like, he was the thing, okay? And I was going into this blind, and if I want to read more about it, or I want to, there's Diablo 1 and everything, and that's all fine and dandy. But as a first player, after I killed Diablo, it just kind of fell off for me a little bit. And when I was playing the storylines in Act 5, they felt a lot more disjointed. I didn't feel like I was still part of the war against the brothers. And maybe that's also because I don't particularly like this boss, and that influenced my feeling towards the map. Or even just the fact that as soon as I talked to an NPC in the map, they told me they don't want me here, and it doesn't matter. Like, I felt very unwelcome in the map. So moving forward, I think I didn't find that the Anya questline, for example, fit very well to what the previous quest lines were like, because they really did focus on the evil and the soul stones and the fight against the evil, as to where here I just felt like I was, as I called it, babysitting. It wasn't the case at the end, I was just helping somebody get back or whatever, but it just didn't feel as important. I didn't feel as I cared about the quest as much as I did in the previous acts. And I think that also disconnected me from the immersion altogether. So that was very unfortunate. Moving on from that, I want to highlight how excited I was about the Ancients. And yet again, I will say that was my favorite part of Act 5 for sure. Because to me, the Ancients area feels like a standalone feature that could be like a... Now, I understand you can repeat the content all the time. Like, yes, I get that. But if I imagine this to be a standalone feature, it would be incredible. I'm more than excited to try that on all difficulties, because it does feel like a test of strength, test of courage, test of ability, test of skills, test of gear, test of everything. And that to me is very glory-like. It's very fascinating and very exciting to be able to, test my strength on this and just get a pass, even if it's just a standalone thing, because there is something testing me and my knowledge and how good I've gotten, or how better I've gotten at the game. So I think this is a top tier map encounter feature, and it was way more satisfying to kill them than it was to kill Bao. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest. It really was. It was very exciting. I was very anxious. It was very gratifying. It was better. It really was. But I will talk about that Bao encounter in a minute, because that one kind of gave me trauma. It did. Now, let's talk about Torquay, is what I called him. So the mercenary in this act felt insanely overpowered. He basically became the main character, as the viewers said, as the chat said. And I couldn't agree more. There were times where I didn't even use Skeletors and I only used my Merc and my Golem and my curses on the enemies, and did bro go ham. He was slapping left, right, and center, honestly. And that's very helpful. It's great and I love it. But in previous acts, I feel like Mercenaries were a great audition, but you didn't have to count on them to be able to help you get through the map. And yes, on a side note, my build was hipster. Okay, my build was random. I just played what I enjoyed playing there. So no, it wasn't meta. Okay, it wasn't the greatest it could have been. It wasn't the strongest it could have been. My gear wasn't the greatest either. But what my point is that I don't think the Mercenaries should ever be so strong that you have to depend on having them, or that they basically take over the game. Now, I had a great laugh at it. It was great entertainment. But coming to the last boss as well, he was something that I had to keep investing in because he was one tanky and he did a lot of damage, including the curses on the mobs or not. He was still doing a lot of damage. So I feel like it would have been a whole lot worse and a lot slower and maybe even near impossible if I didn't have him for the last fight, which I think is kind of a bummer because, as I said in previous, like in Diablo, I didn't even use my mark. I just used my skills and myself, and I was able to work out the fight and kill him. As to where here, it was a different encounter, and I felt like I actually needed him. So it didn't feel like a bonus. It felt like a requirement to pass, and that I think takes away from the freedom of your own choice, I would say, in a sense where you now kind of don't feel like you have the choice of not having him. You just have to you have to have him. That's how I felt it. Now I would have to go back and replay the last boss without him and see, but I'm telling you this now, I would, like, my golem would have not withstood so much damage, or he wouldn't have done so much damage, and having to go back for more Skeletors, just prolonging everything. So he felt very needed, and I don't know if I particularly like that when it comes to solo gameplay. I should be able to achieve everything by myself with only my own skills. And again, I know that my build wasn't as strong as it could have been. Okay, so maybe that's why it felt the way it did. But he did feel overpowered. He was insane. In the best way possible. He was insane. And obviously the items also helped. But yeah, he was insane. The last boss. Now, for anyone who tuned in yesterday, saw me crash out. Again, sorry about that. But this boss had my brain twisted. Okay. I'm going to start off by saying, personally, take into consideration that I do not like chaos. Okay, I don't thrive in chaos. I don't like it. I think it's too messy. But from my point of view, his skill set, it just felt like it was giving me a whiplash. There was so much going on, especially at the start, and for a newbie, it was quite overwhelming. From what I could see, he had a fire AoE, he had frost type of skill set, he had a debuff, he had clones, and on top of that, he also had he was spawning tentacles. Yes, it was very funny when I was just hanging out there killing tentacles for like 5 minutes and nobody told me. Yeah, okay. Anyways, back to the serious point. To me, it seemed like he was either a jack of all trades, or he was a boss with unfinished or badly put together character or personality. It's like just throwing everything into the sink, basically. It just felt like he had too many things and it wasn't narrowed down very well. Maybe this was the aim for the boss, where because he is the brother of destruction, if I understood it correctly, like he's the one for destruction. correct me if I'm wrong, but I could understand that all these spells are examples of destruction, so it would make sense that this would be part of his build. It just didn't feel cohesive at all whatsoever for me personally, and it felt like it was too much. Now, his design overall as a boss, he was disgusting, okay? When I say disgusting, he was gross. But I thought that was cool. I thought that was really cool. That's exactly what he looked like in the cinematic, and the likeliness was so well done. I thought that was really cool. So fighting against him was grossing me out, but it was really cool. So when I was fighting Baal, I'm not sure how you'd pronounce it with two A's in it, but I just personally did not have fun during this encounter until the very last few percentage of it. So with Mephisto and Diablo, I was able to be within the range of them, learn their skill shots, experiment, see what would work, and be able to dodge and basically kill them, learning how to fight them. With Baal, it just felt like surviving, and that was a similar situation that happened in Act 2, where I just felt like, I just need to survive. I don't have time to enjoy the fight. I don't have time to figure it out. I just had to survive. Now, this only kind of happened until the last few percentage then after, but when he spawned his clone, I genuinely just started contemplating my existence. I was getting really frustrated because, and I feel like the biggest impact or the biggest condition for this was the environment, and we can agree to disagree 100% on this, but in my personal opinion, if you place this boss in Diablo's boss room, it would be a whole other encounter. It would be a whole different thing. And I believe I would have enjoyed it a lot more because I would have been able to be near the boss a bit more. I would have been able to learn his skill shots better, easier, maybe faster, and be able to dodge them and prepare myself better. But with Baal in the small room that he was in, it just felt too much, too overwhelming, and just too crazy. In my opinion, I didn't particularly enjoy that at all. I didn't find that fun at all because I didn't even have the time to comprehend, and I died. I think it was twice that I died, and then I was frustrated because the biggest point of frustration for me is if I get stuck somewhere, okay? And I started to get stuck and I started to panic. Side note, a lot of this comes from one singular feeling that I have, and I am claustrophobic. So when I get stuck and I feel in cramped places, I start panicking and I'm freaking out, okay? So when I started getting stuck with him, I started panicking. I couldn't find my body. I was freaking out. I was making mistakes. I was swearing, and I do apologize. But it was just so unfun for me at that point that I was genuinely just crashing out, okay? And then I was told by a viewer that the clone will time out, basically. And this was a huge, huge burden off my shoulders because this unlovable skill set that he has, the clone, is going to time out. Okay, so I can go back to actually fighting the boss and not having this burden of trying to navigate myself through all the damage and, the clone on top of him. So at that point, knowing that the clone would despawn, I don't have a lot to say about the clone other than that it would have been frustrating as it is. So props to everyone who is fighting Baal with the clone on top of you. Like, oh my god. But I then basically just waited it out. I TP'd out, I waited it out, I ignored the clone, then TP'd back in and back into the fight with Baal. So I think it was the clone and the environment that made it really difficult for me and unplayable. I really did enjoy that. So actually when I changed the curse as well, that's when things changed for me a lot, which was really just the viewers being like, we can't stand watching you suffer anymore. This is unbearable. And I was just crashing out. So all well and justified 100%. I did end up using a curse that would weaken the damage that he deals upon my just deals in general. So that allowed me to spend more time in the room with him. So building this knowledge definitely helped, and learning that these curses and skills and everything are more helpful. When it came to the last few percentage, he didn't spawn any of his clones. He didn't do anything other than his standard set of skills, I assume. And that's when I was locking in. That's when I was able to be like, okay, so I can dodge this. I can just not stand in front of him to not get hit by the cone, the frontal. I can just go, shield through some of the damage that he pops out on the AoE. And then he's going to TP, and then I'm going to redo this, and my curse is going to run out, and I have to so that's when I started locking in. That's when I started enjoying the rest of the fight with Baal, where I was like, okay, I'm figuring this out. This is more satisfying. I'm able to control the fight and what I can and cannot do. And I was able to, heal my Merc a bit better and all these kinds of things. So that's when it started becoming more fun for me, is when I was able to focus on the boss, learn his techniques. And even though I was still TPing out, I was still just trying to figure it out by myself. And I didn't have this frustrating technique on top of it that was just nuking me, because they both decided to do AoE at the same time. And the pots are fairly slow, and I got completely nuked twice. Well, first time I couldn't overheal it. Second time I panicked, couldn't find my body. So yeah, that's just panic right there. Anyways, my point about Baal's encounter is I believe I would have enjoyed it a lot more, even though it was built in chaos, if there would have been a little more room to be able to navigate myself, take a deep breath, think about what's happening in the room without needing to TP, and if the clone wasn't there. I think the clone was an extra step that just didn't need to be there, because at the end of the day, it's going to time out, and it's as simple as just TPing out, waiting out, and TPing in. So it generally just didn't feel like it needed to be there for me personally. I think the boss would have been more fun as it was just without it. I think a lot of people would agree to disagree on this, okay? Because a lot of people actually enjoyed Act 5, and I can see why. There's some great things and features in this, but I will just say that it felt a lot more as a kind of an outsider. It didn't feel as cohesive to the rest of the first 4 acts. I'm unaware of exactly, how it was released or, anything like that. I don't know. Okay, I went into this by just playing Diablo, and the game went from 1 to 5, and that's how it was written for me. But the last chapter just felt unattached. Okay, it didn't feel like it was seamless, like it was part of it. It just felt kind of an extra. So I wasn't as immersed in it as I would have liked. But I think this could have been solved by just having a different order of things. Okay, I think, and again, maybe this is not something that could have been done, because if it was released after, this obviously couldn't have been done. I'm just saying the way the game is being played out for me specifically when I bought it is not a great order for me to play it, it would seem. So I didn't personally enjoy the last act at all. In fact, it was probably my least favorite. Even though it had some great things in it, it just wasn't as fun for me. Lastly, I want to add that the loot in Act 5 was actually fairly generous. I did get some cool pieces throughout the whole act, and I did get some upgrades as well, and from Baal as well. So the loot was actually rewarding in that sense. It's just killing Baal was not very satisfying. It was more of a relief that it was done than actual gratification or actual rewarding feeling from it. I shall leave this video on a hot take possibly, but I said at the end of the stream yesterday, when I actually didn't realize that it was going to end after Baal. I didn't know. I genuinely thought there was going to be more of some type. I was like, this cannot end so soon. But it did. And my last parting words with Act 5 was the fact that I regret playing it. I don't regret playing it in the sense of that it ruined Diablo for me. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I really enjoyed this game. It's incredible. It's very rich. It's very replayable. It has so much content. I just regret playing it as a last act. I would have been much happier if I just went 1 and 4 and never knew that a 5 existed. I just feel like 5 just was unnecessary for me specifically. I'm sure I'll be like farming some stuff out of it in the future, or it'll have a different feel when I know more about the game, and maybe I'll even enjoy it more. But as a new player to Diablo, I genuinely would have just been happy with 1 to 4. Just the perfect cake, you know? Anyways, that leaves me at the end of the video. This one's kind of lengthy as well. I just went off a tangent. Poor Baal. He did nothing wrong other than just be a angry boss, and I laid into him. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in as well on this video and yesterday on the stream. Thank you so much for all the support and the input you guys had, the advice, tips, and all that. Moving forward, I have said this before, I have achieved what I wanted to achieve in this game. So me taking outer resources and help is an open thing at this point, because I will gladly, if I'm stuck, I'm going to research something, because I already feel like I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. So I'm very excited about that. And a lot of people were telling me, don't try and guess these rune words. Don't do it. It's a waste of time. I get it. Everyone was, from what I read, a lot of people started the game with the manual. Okay. A lot of people started the game with the guides, and that's fine. I never said I was going to guess all of them. Okay. I just wanted to try to guess a rune by myself because everybody was telling me I can't. So guess what? I did it. And it felt super rewarding. It did feel super rewarding, even though it was just luck. But it felt good to be able to do it on my first normal rerun, or first normal run of the game. So very satisfying. And I am more than happy with how I ran Diablo. It was insane amount of entertainment for me. It was frustration as well as hard work, sweat and tears at some point. But overall, I was blown away with the game. I stand by what I said, that I'm so glad that I have a game I can now play forever, because this game doesn't feel like it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. And I have so much more to explore within the game. So whatever videos come forth, I'll be very grateful for any support. If it's not your ballpark, it is what it is. I'm hoping to try more classes, and I'm hoping to try other Diablo games that were suggested to me as well, to see how the story kind of develops, especially when somebody says, oh, why don't you try Diablo 4? There's no Diablo in it. So that's going to be exciting. But yes, I would be ranting forever. So thank you very much. That was the review of the Act 5 from my perspective as a new player to Diablo. Leave all your comments again in the comment section, and I'm looking forward to reading them. Be nice to me, okay? Don't burn me at stake just because I didn't like Act 5. It was great. I could see it, okay? I could see it. But yeah, thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.